Anytime we read, it's important to consider what type of text we are reading before we start, so that we can choose appropriate reading strategies. Each type or genre of text is written with a different audience and purpose in mind, and understanding the audience and the author's purpose helps us to choose strategies to match. Research articles are generally written for an audience of researchers, scientists, or other academics. That means they are going to follow a specific pattern or format, and that they will contain a level of specificity that students in these fields may not need. Knowing this gives us as readers permission to skip over any information that is not relevant to our reading purpose. The author's purpose in writing and publishing these articles is to publish new research or new analysis of existing research to add their voice to the academic conversation. Since we are not research scientists yet, we have a different reason for reading these articles. It's important to read with our purpose in mind, which is to answer a specific question and gather evidence to share that explains how we found out the answer to our research question. Other important reading strategies to use when reading research articles include scanning the article for relevant sections and then carefully rereading the parts that have information we need, summarizing or paraphrasing often to make sure we understand what we are reading, and asking questions often, such as how does this relate to my research question, and what evidence did these scientists find that led them to these conclusions? Before I start reading a research article, I like to preview it to figure out, first of all, whether or not it's going to meet my needs. So in other words, whether or not it has the information in it that I'm looking for. And then secondly, to figure out which sections of it I'm going to read, because I know that I am not the intended audience for most research papers that are written by scientists, because I'm not a scientist and I am not going to be using this information the same way that a scientist would. So one thing that I know that I'm not super interested in is learning a lot about the math that went into figuring out what the results were from the study. So first I want to see when the article was published, because I want recent research whenever possible. And I see up here at the top of the page it says 2016 is when it was published. So for me that's recent enough to still be pretty useful, pretty relevant. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to scroll through and see how long the article is and what the different sections look like. So I've got an abstract, I have keywords, that's going to be useful for me. Introduction, the model, and some definitions, it looks like, of what exactly the study is about. I'm definitely going to need to understand that. How they're evaluating the information that they got. A lot on that, so I might skip through some of that. We'll see. A description of the goals of this study, and specifically what makes this study different from the studies that have been done in this field in the past. So that's going to be really important. I'm definitely going to read that closely. Okay, methods. I'm probably not going to spend too much time on the methods section because I know there's going to be a lot of math in here, and I'm just going to trust that they did their math correctly because I'm guessing they have had more recent math classes than I have. And so I see in here that there's a lot of information about exactly how the study was done. I will probably not, like I said, spend too much time on it unless there's something that I want to clarify when I'm reading the rest of it. I'm definitely going to skip the data analysis because, again, the math involved doesn't interest me. I'm just going to trust them to do the math for me. Results, I'm also probably going to mostly skip the results because that's going to be showing exactly what they found and not what conclusions they were able to draw from the information that they got. So I'm going to skip most of this, skip most of that. Discussion. This part's going to be really important because it will tell me what they think they've figured out based on the numbers that they gathered and the data that they have been studying so far. So I'm going to spend a lot of time looking at the discussion section and read that a couple of times probably, and take really close notes on that. Limitations I don't care too much about. That's more for people who come after these scientists, so that they know what they might want to study in order to find holes in the research that was done currently. I'm not so much interested in that. Implications, on the other hand, that's going to be a really big important part for me. So I'm going to read implications pretty closely, and I'm definitely going to read the conclusion closely as well. So basically, those are the things to pay attention to. Not every research study is going to have the exact same sections in it that I just described, but a lot of them are going to be very similar to that. So for example, here's a different study that's set up just a little bit differently. This one was done in Germany. It's from 2014, so it's still pretty recent. It's still going to be very relevant to my interests. Okay, so now if I scroll down through this one, I see the abstract, which I'm definitely going to spend a lot of time on because, again, that's a great summary of the entire article and the findings. I see the keywords here. That's important too because I want to check the keywords before I read the rest of the article to make sure that the article is going to be useful for the research that I want to do. So I will definitely read the introduction pretty closely just to find out exactly what's going on here. The study itself, again, I will probably read just the beginning part of that and then not the measures section because this is going to be kind of the depth of the numbers specifically. And then in this one we have the results. Most of the numbers in this research article have been put into tables. So if I want to look a little bit more closely to find out exactly what they found, like differences in employment, differences in numbers for disability, I can look at that a little bit more closely in the tables. But for the most part, I'm probably going to skip those numbers again and just read the sections where they describe what they found. Because that way they've already done the analysis of the numbers for me. As you can see, this article is a little bit longer, but in reality, the thing that's making it long is all of the numbers and tables that are in here, and so if you skip over that, it doesn't take nearly as long to read. Now, there may be a time when you want to go back and take a closer look at some of the tables, but for the most part, for our purposes in this class, you probably won't need to. And then in here we just have a conclusion. You see I didn't have much of a section of discussion like we did in the first article, but the conclusion, of course, I will spend a lot of time on and make sure that I really clearly understand both what question they were asking with this study and what conclusions they were able to draw based on the numbers that they gathered. And that's it. Previewing your articles before you read will save you time by helping you make sure they fit your purpose and helping you to decide which sections to read closely and which sections you can probably skip, at least the first time you read the article. Thanks for watching.